Hello everyone, this is Sandeep Singh, Assistant Professor in VBD University, SHM Department. So in this video we are going to learn about the bread, the science behind the making of breads and the history and the equipments and the ingredients which we use in making a bread. As we all know that European countries are based on a bread which is baked. They don't eat fresh breads like us. As in Indian culture or in Asian culture, what we do, we knead the dough and make the fresh breads that we call roti, paratha, and all, and eat it. But they have a tradition of making their breads which are oven baked, and they can be preserved for 2 to 3 days. So today we are going to discuss about the breads. In this topic, in this video, we will cover the ingredients involved in making of breads, the quality we need to know, how we are going to choose the ingredients for the bread making, and how to handle the ingredients of the breads so that we can get the maximum of the utilization of the ingredients to get a perfect breads. So now start with this first slide we have. In the first slide we will discuss about the history of the breads. So there is nowhere it is written how the oven baked bread are being found, but it is believed that one of the oldest bread making tradition or culture was found in the some parts of the Switzerland, and it is near about 5,000 year back. And there is also a tradition that the bakers who bake the breads, they put their trademark in that. So there are some breads found which having a trademarks through which they are able to know that Switzerland and some part of the Switzerland or European countries, that the bread are the old tradition of making bread. Now the concept of making bread, how they make the bread, how they do it. So because as we know that bread is a leavened product, or is a product which was having a fermentation process in that the dough has having a fermentation process in that. So how they do, the question arises, how they do the fermentation of bread, how they put the things which can do the fermentation of the bread. So they found a tradition that they observed by getting through the history and by getting to the that times of things available during their civilization. They found that what they do, they generally, means you can say, it was found that that bread was not made intentionally. It was bread is not made intentionally, it was made unintentionally. Means what they do, they have kneaded the dough, and that dough is kept overnight, and then next in the morning, to get the utilization of the that leftover dough, what they did, they put that dough into the fresh dough, and when the overnight stored dough mixed with the fresh dough, they start doing the fermentation, and the fermentation leads to the leavening of the bread. And when they baked it, they found that they are very much easy to digest and giving a new types of texture, new types of flavor or aroma. So they start doing this. It is written somewhere, or in the history it is found that during the emperor of Augustine, they make a team who have worked on the making of bread like leaven product. Means they have asked chef teams or the teams of cooks to discover the various way to get the perfect leavened dough with new tradition and cultures. And after that, there are many experiment, many upgradations are doing day by day, every time, every year they are producing some new varieties and ways to produce the leavened dough or to produce the doughs. So this is about a basic history which we need to know. So uh, when they during that time, when they don't have any yeast or microbial pathogens with them, so how they start doing the fermentations of bread. So there is a tradition, or you can say there is a saying, there is a culture. What they do, they use the malt of the cereal and the hops with the water. Means hops is a flour which is used to give the quick fermentation process in many of the alcoholic drinks. That was used. It is a flour which was used, and the malt is used. The malt of the cereal is used. Malt is nothing. It's just we soak the any cereal with the husk, and while soaking, when we soak this cereals into the water for a longer period of time, they start giving some liquid which are natural fermenter. So what they do, they use that liquid for making the breads, and they mix the hops flour with that, so that the fermentation can be done easily. But as the modernizations occur, civilization changed, upgraded themselves, so they start using the uh, yeast. They start using how to calculate how to convert the yeast for longer better use. In still somewhere the people use beers or soda for making dough, so that they can have the fermented dough. So this is the old tradition way. As the modernization has come, they have started using the various types of yeasts and cultures to get the dough fermented, and depending what the type of bread they want to use. So there is a history before, there is an incident, people say, which is written, that up to the year of 1859 it was brought that fermentation just happened. Means till the year of 1859 it is believed that the fermentation is a natural occurring process, and it was done by the god, and this is like that. But the Louis Pasteur showed that it was the result of microorganism converting sugar into carbon dioxide. But the scientist Louis Pasteur, who has made the yeast, artificial yeast, has discovered the artificial yeast, and they told that it is not an natural god process. It is just a science in which what happens, that sugar was eaten by the microbes, and after eating it they produce the CO2, and this CO2 makes the dough fermented or leavened. So he is the person who have origin the yeast and start making the yeast. Patent yeast were soon made which was used in ferment to multiply and extend it further. There are various names given to these balms used depending upon the area or the time. Means when the yeast are start being used, they are giving the various names, like spawn or virgin balm is one of them, and they derived from the word spontaneous. Compound balms are derived from the malt, hops, and brewer yeast. Means when they start making the yeast, they have given the names to the yeast according to their manufacturing. When two or three things are combined together and make the yeast, they call it as compounded bomb. Or when they have a single product, something which they have used to make the yeast, or the thing which balm which can be used for the balm, is a process they called for the fermentation, the word they have given. So before the yeast have taken place, the balm is the word which they use. So they use this, and the virgin is again one of the word they used. Now this is all about the brief about the history of bread. That the bread, nobody knows ki when the bread is the leavened bread or the fermented bread has started. It is believed that near 5000 years back it was started, and it is near in some of the European cultures and towns in the or village in the Switzerland. They have started that, and they have make it in such a commercialized way, that they what they do, they make the brand on the breads. They make their brand on the breads, printed brands on the bread, so that people can identify that this commercial place is giving the bread. So they have developed in such a way, and it is also believed that they don't know about the process of fermentation. It was happened incidentally, that to utilize the dough which was left out in the night, they mix up that dough with the fresh dough in the morning, and after some time they realize that bread becomes that bread dough become very soft, and when they cooked it, they found it that it is very easy to digest and giving a new type of flavor and aroma. So they developed the techniques to do this. Before that, nobody knows about this. So during the period of during the period of Emperor Augustine, Augustine has given a chance to the various their chefs that they develop these types of technology to produce the fermented doughs, and or then they make a good breads. So their team have developed the things, and they found that with the mixing of hops and the malt syrup, they found that they can easily ferment the dough, and this fermentation will lead to the good breads or good dough. But as they move on, the civilization upgraded, they are able to know about the yeast. As we all know that before that, um, before Louis Pasteur has told that fermentation is not any god or good gods or magic thing. It is just a scientific process in which what happens that sugar is eaten by the yeast, and it is converted into the CO2, which lead to the formation of leavened dough or fermented dough. So after that, they have start making balms. The balm is a word for the things which is used to ferment the things. So they given the balms name according to the components which were involved in making the balms. Like for the virgin balm or the balms which having only one types of thing in that, they have a compound balm in which they used to put hops flour and for malt of the cereals. So as the technology grows, they are able to know the work of yeast and microbes, and they are able to make it into the different form available. Some instant yeast, some yeast which are compounded yeast which can stay for a longer time, they know known as a dry yeast. As yeast, if it doesn't go the proper temperature or doesn't go get the proper food, they will be die easily. So as the techniques grow, they are able to retain their life as well as their growth as well as their functionality, and they are able to calculate how much of yeast is required to leaven a dough depending upon the quantity they need. So this is all about the history of that. Now coming with the history of bakery oven, when and where and what beliefs they have, how they get the bakery oven to make a bread. The bakery oven, they believe that there is near about 8,000 years back, they having a tradition of cooking the breads on the heated stone. What they do, they heat the stones, and on that they making the breads, which was very much popular in the Asian countries, and still they follow it with some new technique that nowadays they use iron tawa on the gas, on the burners. They put the iron tawa, and on that they put the freshly kneaded dough and make the breads. So it is believed that Egyptians are the first person, Egyptians or Mediterranean bakers are the first person who have discovered the ovens or the culture of making breads into the oven, and that ovens was run on or get heat on the basis of the wood fire, a charcoal fire, or a stone fires. So this is believed that near about 3000 to 3000 years back, it is believed that they are able to make the breads with the help of these types of oven, which was based on the concept of wood burning or charcoal burning, and there are 16 types of different breads which they are using in the European countries. Bakery ovens dating back to the 4005 where has been discovered. So this is about the basic about the oven. When the people have started using near about 3000 or 4000 years back, it is believed that they have started the commercial oven through which they are making the breads, and these fermented baked oven baked breads having initially near about 15 to 16 varieties of bread available in the markets. This is all about the history of oven and history of bakery or baking, when the baking was started. Now we will study the different types of ingredients which was involved in making the breads. So each and every ingredient had its own variety, has its own role to play in making a bread. So we start with the first and the basic important ingredient of the bread is flour. Flour is the basic ingredient for making a bread. It's give body to the bread. Flour is the thing which gives main structural body to the bread, and as well as its variety, means which variety of bread we are going to produce is totally depend upon the flour which we use. So here come the definition some flour, and from where we in this we will cover which type of flour is good for making bread, and from where we get the perfect flour, what was the process of getting a perfect flour. So here we come with this, the most important ingredient which gives body and structure to the bread. The concept of flour affect the final product to such an extent that it becomes vital to understand the various components and its properties. So to understand the flour, we need to understand the structure of flour, so that we are able to know what part of the flour or grains play an important role to make a perfect flour, which can be used for making a perfect bread. So the most common used grain in the flour manufacture is the wheat grain or Triticum group. Though there are thousands of varieties of wheat, there are three main groups under which wheat can be classified. So wheat flour is the very much common flour which was used for making different types of breads. And to understand wheat flour, we need to know that first that there is a lots of variety which was produced all around the world for the breads, for the growing of wheat. But we need to understand that on the baker's point of view, the bakery industry or the bakers have decided only three major category under which they have categorized the wheat. If the wheat follows any of the three categories, we used it for different purpose in the bakery and confectionery sections. So here comes the three category. First is Triticum vulgare, Triticum durum. Triticum durum is having high sugar, starch, susceptible to dietase. Then we have Triticum compactum, too soft for bread making. So here we have three categories: Triticum vulgare, Triticum durum, Triticum compactum. Triticum durum is the only quality of flour we use in the bakery section to get the perfect dough, because they having a natural sugar content as well as a good protein. The protein of the wheat flour is known as gluten. So when the bacteria induce in the flour, they are able to get the food which is sugar, which is the natural sugar present in the that flour, and their starch or their protein gluten are in such a way, when they start digesting it, they gives enough to them, so that they can easily dilute the gluten, so that the air bubbles can be formed easily in that, and they can trap it out. It can give the elasticity to the bread depending upon how much yeast we have used. So here we comes with the structure of wheat grain. I will give you one pic of wheat diagram, so there you can understand. There is a three main parts of the wheat we need to understand. There is a three main part of the wheat. First is bran, second is germ, and third is endosperm. The bran is the outermost layer and is the protective covering of the grain. It has five layers. So bran is the outermost layer of the wheat, which was sometime taken out while making the wheat from its cover. So that's why that the things which come out, that also used for the feeding of animals, or sometimes it is used nowadays to get a perfect diet or balanced diet. People use that outer shell of the wheat, that we also known as dalia also. So we don't need to understand about the five layers of this. We need to understand that what is germ and what is endosperm. The endosperm is the portion from where refined flour is milled. So here's come the most important thing. Bran or germ is the thing is the object in the wheat that is further go for the germination, and means with the help of that germs, if we are able to preserve, we can produce the uh, further further crops of the vegetable, for the crops of the wheat. Means if we do that wheat and we preserve it and we produce the germs in that, we are able to produce the next crops of the wheats. So these two things are not too much important for us. For bakery section, it is very much important, the endosperm. The endosperm is the portion from where refined flour is milled. It consists of 85% of the grain and is made up of a number of small compartment of cellulose. These are tightly packed with the starch cells. In a space between them are found other substances like insoluble protein, fat, moisture, and sugar. The germ is the smallest part of the grain and contains most of the oil content, and hence has a tendency to go rancid. It also contains the cellulose and other valuable components which are removed during the milling of refined flour. So for us, the endosperm is the most important part of from the wheat. From the wheat, the most important part is endosperm. The endosperm is a thing which consists of 85% of the cellulose or starch, which was knitted by the good quality of wheat flour, which is going to be used for the bakery. And rest, they have some of the insoluble protein, fat, and moisture content, which was also required for the activation and work of the germs or the yeast which we are going to use. The next come the germs. The germs is the smallest part of the grain and contains most of the oil content, and hence has, as we know that the germs has a oil content, and this oil content can go to the can convert it into the rancid, and this rancid product can harm the product of refined flour, and that's why this germs is also removed. So only endosperm part is used during the milling, so that we can get the bread which is having a good elasticity. And definitely on the basis of the elasticity, or on the basis of the elasticity and the on the basis of the gluten strength, we decide which flour is good for making breads. It is believed that near about 7% of 7 the breads which are having a 7% of gluten or more than 7% of gluten, less than 7% of the gluten, they are good for baking. And the wheat product which is having more than 7% of gluten are not too much good for the making of bread. This is what considered. So now coming with the milling process, as we need to discuss about the handling of the raw material which was used in making the bread. The one of the most major ingredient is wheat grain. So as now we are able to know the different categories of the wheat and different part of the wheats, in which endosperm is the most important part which we use for making refined flour. Now we will come with the the milling process, because we need to know how to handle this ingredient exactly. The milling process: the wheat grain has to be milled in order to extract all the component of the grain and to make it ready for the bread making process. Means during the milling we need to be focused, very much focused, how we are going to mill. As when you go into the market, you will find out there is a special especially packing of the refined flour, and it is mentioned they are good for the baking. So while the owners of the milling firms, they put a special focus for the bakers, and they produce the special refined flours for baking products. So what they considered while making this, now we will see it. In making the refined flour for the bread, they are having the two main jobs, or two main methods they use to do to get the perfect refined flour. One is stone milling and one is roller milling. The stone milling is a traditional culture, and the roller milling is a new techniques. So now we discuss and we will read what is stone milling and what is a roller milling. A stone mill flour is the more primitive method of milling flour, and it consists of two heavy stone that I already told you that stone milling process is a very traditional process in which what happens that grains are put into the in between the two hard stones, and the stone, one of the part of the stone is stilled and the second part is rotated by the mechanical process with the help of a human being or with the help of mechanical engines. The bottoms on remain stationary while the top one moves in a circular fashion. This is a small opening on the top of the stone through which the grains is passed. Heat is generated by friction during the milling, part of which is observed by the stone. A part of the heat goes to the germs and melt the germ soil and mix it throughout the endosperm. This method is mainly used to make whole wheat flour, and when refined flour is to be produced, the flour is sieved through silk blotting cloths to remove the coarse bran particles. However, all the particles are not removed by this methods. So as we know that when we are doing this milling process, some due to the friction, a heat is generated, but maximum of the heat is absorbed by the stone. But what happens, some of the heat is not able to be if we are continuously doing this, some of the heat is not able to absorb by the stone. So what it do, it start making germ soil to come and mix with the whole of the flour which was milled. And this whole wheat flour is, as we already discussed, that the oil is not good, it become rancid and it make product with a different taste and will not allowed to make a good quality of dough. So what they do, they during this process, to remove the some bran which can be left while milling, they strain it out with the help of a fine strainer or with the help of silk or you can say a muslin cloth, so that the fine particles of the browns can be removed easily, which further cannot harm the quality of refined flour which we need to make a breads. Some of the cerulean or aeroline cells also pass into the flour, which causes slightly softening of the flour or gluten. Now coming with the roller milling. Roller milling are modern methods of milling where there is a gradual reduction of the size of the grains from coarse meal to the fine flour. A mill consisting of two horizontal rollers, one rotating faster than the other. This rolling has a tearing effect on the grains which is ripped and open. Here the germs is separated from the endosperm before milling, and hence the germ oil is not released into the flour. Also the ergoline cells are released into the flour to such a large extent give a stronger flour. The only disadvantage that this method has it that the heat generated by the grinding process is transferred to the flour, as there are no stone to absorb. It causes a slightly denaturing of certain particles. So we have read about the rolling method of making refined flour in the mills. The rolling method is generally used to get the refined flour for making a good quality of flour for making the dough for the breads. So in this what happens, there are two roller pinners, and the roller pinners are not made from the stone. Both the roller pinner is spin and the cereals go under through it. But what happens when we do, the whole grains were crushed during this rolling method, they are able to take out the germs and bran part easily. They are only left out with the endosperm part of the wheat, and this endosperm part gets easily into the flour process. And the only disadvantage of this rolling pin method is what, these rolling pin are not made up of a stone, due to which the heat is not observed. And what happens that when this heat is observed by the refined flour, due to which many of the cereals, many of the proteins, many of the vitamins get denatured in the flour, which was not believed to be very good for the good quality of refined flour. So here are the two methods through which we will get the refined flour, but the second method, rolling pin method, is the method which was preferred by the bakers to get their refined flour. Now come with the composition of flour, what they exactly have. starch 70%, water content 13%, and gluten insoluble protein near about 11%. They were starch content near about 70%, the water content near about 13%, and the gluten insoluble protein is 11%. That's why it is said the percentage of gluten, if the which is protein which is insoluble, if it is less, it is less in number, which is 7%, then the flour is considered to be good. If it is more than 7%, then the flour is not good because it is insoluble, so it will not allowed to get the perfect elasticity in making this the bread process. This is a soluble protein which is 2%, fat 1%, sugar content 2.5, which was a major ingredient. Sugar again a major ingredient needed by the yeast to get it activation done. So this is all the composition of refined flour. Now coming with the protein in a flour. The five constituent of protein in the wheat grains are, there is a 5 different types of proteins which are available in the grain, or you can say these parts comes together and make up final protein in the flour, that is albumin, globulin, protease, glutenin, and the gliadin. These are either water soluble, salt soluble, or completely insoluble. These all are either water soluble, either salt soluble, either insoluble. The glutenin is the insoluble protein which was available or which was present in the refined flour. Rest, some of them like albumin is easily soluble in salt solution, globulin is easily soluble in water solution. So these are either soluble in water or either soluble in salt solution. The first 3 proteins are soluble and act as the nitrogenous matter for yeast food. Definitely the first 3, albumin, globulin, and protease. These 3 proteins are easily digestible, water soluble, and they become a food for the yeast. And the glutenin and the gliadin are insoluble in water and get hydrated when the water is added to form the insoluble protein. Gluten, gliadin give elasticity to the gluten while acting as a binding agent. Gliadin is the constant which provide the elasticity to the refined flour, while the gluten is the thing which gives a binding effect to the protein. That's why it is considered, if it is more than 7%, the binding will be more, then it is very tough for the yeast to give the elasticity to the bread. Gluten provides the means whereby gas generated by the yeast is captured in the structure of the finer strand of the gluten, which will stretch as the gas. Okay, so gluten gives a structure where the gas which was produced by the germ which was, so gluten is the thing which provide the elasticity, as the CO2 was produced by the microorganism that was trapped by the gluten, because they are having a structure. After mixing with the water, they make a strands which allow them that they make such a structure that CO2 cannot be released and go away from the making of this CO2 from the dough, and the dough will rise. So this is how the work was done by the protein which was present in the flour. So it is very much important we to know that we have 5 types of protein which was available in the wheat, that is albumin, globulin, protease, glutenin, and gliadin. Albumin, globulin, and protease, these proteins are soluble in the water. They provide a type of food and energy to the yeast so that they can work easily. And the gluten and the gliadin, in this gluten and gliadin is the things which provides the gliadin give the elasticity to the dough, and the gluten make a structure which traps the CO2 produced by the protein, produced by the bacteria's yeast. So that's why it is said that the wheat quality is dependent upon the gluten present in it. If it is less than 7%, then it up to 7% it is good. More than 7% it is not good, because then it make the texture very much hard, and the CO2 produced cannot make, or you need a lots of yeast to get the things, or lots of water to make a particular structure ready for that. So now come with the how gluten works. We need to understand how it makes a structure. Gluten provides the mean whereby gas generated by the yeast is captured in the structures of fine strand of the gluten, which will stretch as the gas is formed by making the dough to rise. The protein will coagulate. Here comes the functioning, how it's function. The protein will coagulate it when heated and will set firmly to give a firm structure to the bread. The art of making bread center around having the gluten at an oven ready stage, so that will give an easy to the expanding gases, at the same time retaining them without breaking down. Gluten can be conditioned as a result of a combination of many factors such as amount of yeast. So gluten is the only major factor which decide the perfection of the dough. If the gluten was perfectly natured and give time to make its structure ready or strands ready before the baking, it will give the perfect bread which come out with the perfect structure. So what are the factors which affect the gluten are amount of yeast and its activity, how much amount of yeast we have used. If we have used too much amount of yeast and they have produced lot and they get the food, means the sugar content which they want to as a food, and they get it in a very good quantity, they produce lots of CO2, but the gluten is not activated properly, then that CO2 can be released, or due to the pressure of that CO2 the gluten structure or the strands can be broken down and the dough become flattened. The dough temperature, again the gluten start working properly if they get a suitable gluten temperature. Acidity of the dough, if the CO2 and the acidity both the things are made, then it is difficult for the gluten to stand for a longer time. Manipulation of the dough, how the dough is manipulated and handled or mixed. So these are the major factors which affect the standard of the dough when the gluten was used. Effects of the additions in the dough. Salt, other things which we need to understand their functioning also. The other products which we use are here, we need to understand. After the flour, the second most important thing which we need is water. The main functions of the water include hydration of the insoluble protein, taking up the soluble protein and other matters. So the functioning of the water in this is first, hydration of the insoluble protein, means making them such a form that they can make a strand structure. And the second, the second function of the water is to make the protein soluble. Whatever protein they can make it soluble, they can soluble. Disposing the yeast among the entire dough. Disposing the yeast among the entire dough means the yeast which is working, they equally distribute. The water is the medium for the yeast to get equally distributed through all the parts of the dough. It is observed that the water content greatly affect the rate of the fermentation. Thus it can be seen that the speed of fermentation is greater in a ferment as compared to sponge, as compared to a dough which have an increasing level of hydration. As the fermentation time increase, it becomes essential to reduce the water content to affect a higher dough ripening. So it is observed that the dough which was having a good quantity of water give a perfect hydration and make a dough very much fermented. So depending upon the need of the dough, which type of dough we need, we put the water according to that. That will help the function of the yeast. The amount of water present will also affect the texture of the final product, and this is effectively used in various products. So this is the functioning of means quantity of water which we are going to use. We need to know for the batter we need a hot plate and crumpets, exceptionally soft dough, hot plate and muffins, very soft dough, oven muffins, buns, soft dough which flow, all dough bakes in pan. So here is the category of doughs which was depended or you can say which was classified on the basis of the water amount which was used. If we need a batter is a bit tighter, then we need a hot plates to get that cooked. Exceptionally soft dough, that hot plate muffins, very soft dough, ovens muffins and buns, soft dough which flow, all dough. So the water will provide the different textures to the dough, and it will decide which type of method we are going to use to make the further cooking process. So this is one of the use, or you can say this is one of the thing which we need to consider while using the water. The second most important thing is the quality of water. We have two types of water: hard water and the normal water. Hard water is a water which having a other minerals which are very strong in nature, like magnesium and magnesium, basically the magnesium. And as we all know that, or we must know that the fermentation process is very good in an alkaline medium, or in a bit alkaline medium. The water content which is having an alkaline solution are very much good, because the alkaline things will give a controlled way of doing the fermentation by the yeast. They can be the control the functioning of the yeast. And the minerals like salt, which was present in the alkaline solution of the alkaline water, they help the gluten to make a firm stand, so that they are able to hold the CO2 which was produced by it. So but very hard water, which having a lots of magnesium in that, magnesium or sulfate in that, they are not good for the dough, as they kill the yeast, or means they avoid the working of yeast, they control the yeast. So it can make the bread into the way which we don't want. So the alkalinity of the water or the hardness of the water is also depend. So we need to take a water which was not too much hard, or we do it according to the need of the dough which we are going to make. So this is what the second ingredient which was used, which was maximum used, is water. And the what we need to consider while taking a water as an ingredient: first, the hardness of the water, and the most important thing, the hardness of the water. So coming with the third ingredient, that is ice in bread making. Somewhere in big level of productions, they use the ice for making a dough, to keep the temperature of the dough on a ferment process. But generally the ice is not required for the making of dough. It is only used to make the dough clean, cool, and the fermentation process to be controlled according to the need of this. So there is not too much required for the dough. We don't need to go deeply about this. Now we are coming with the yeast, because ice was not generally used by any part of the world. It is only used by the very much big commercial industries, where they need to produce dough regularly. So that's why they use this technique to hold out the temperature of dough, so that the fermentation process is not done by the largely. You can say this process was, if I need to give example, then you can say that like Domino's, what they have a centralized unit which produce the dough. So their dough was theirs, and they need to give their doughs to different outlets. So to survive that, the yeast does not work during the transportation and during different process, they use ice bath to the dough, so that their temperature should maintain. And the yeast does not work, yeast only work when they want it. So second, third and most important ingredient is yeast. We need to understand what is yeast. So here's the definition for the yeast. Yeast is a living or microorganism belonging to the fungi family. It obtained its food from the carbohydrate, that is sugar. Sugar is essential for pancreatic fermentation, hence they are called Saccharomyces. Though there are many strains of yeast, the types of used for bread making is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So yeast is again family, belongs to fungi, but all the yeast, all the microbes are not good for our consumption. So here's the category of Saccharomyces cerevisiae is the name of yeast or enzyme which we generally use for making the bread in the industry. What are the primary functions of the yeast? The primary functions of the yeast to convert the sugar into the CO2, which aerated the dough. So this is what the functioning of the dough, the functioning of the yeast. So when dispersed in water with the yeast food, when the yeast is mixed with the food and mix up into the water, this water goes to the each and every part of the dough. The yeast exudes an enzymes which change sucrose into the dextrose, which is then observed by the yeast cell. Inside the cell, this is broken down into the carbon dioxide and other byproducts. So here is the cycle of work done by the yeast. Invertase into sucrose, then dextrose, livulose, maltase into maltose and dextrose. This is what they do. Yeast also has an enzyme which changes the protein into simpler compounds. This is the simplifications of the complex compound carbohydrate which was present in the flour, or you can say the sugar content which was present in the flour in the complex compound was converted into the simple compounds. So here is the dramatic presentation of the working of the yeast. What they do, yeast cell, what they do, they get the sucrose in water, so they start converting this into the ethyl alcohol and CO2. So this is the yeast. Yeast work perfectly on the 78 to 82 degree Fahrenheit. Above this, the fermentation become rapid but get weaker. So above this, the this is the perfect temperature where the yeast will do the work. But above this, they start doing the work very fast, but they kill, and due to which the CO2 which was produced was lapsed. So this is not a perfect temperature. At 40 degree Fahrenheit, yeast is completely retarded. Though it is not damaged, yeast can be never dissolved completely in water, though it is dispersed well into it. To affect the distribution well, use a whisker. Yeast at 40 degree Fahrenheit, what they do, they are become inactive. To make them active, we need to reach the temperature of 78 to 82 degrees Celsius, Fahrenheit, and they are very much insoluble in the water. So we need to mix it very well into the water solution. We can use our hand with the help of gloves, or we can use a whisker so that we can easily mix them, and then we can distribute into the dough and it will work. So yeast are coming to the various form. Compressed yeast must be cool to touch and must possess a creamy color, breaking with a clean fracture. It is a lightly in color, dry, warm, and with a pungent odor. Basically, the compressed yeast are the yeast which can stay for a longer period of time. If we give a good refrigeration temperature, they can survive for a year also. So that's why they are very much needed, so that they can be used further and further. The commercial manufacturing of the compressed yeast are the stage. Seed stage means how they work. Preparation of what? The first stage is, it is essential to have a healthy first generation. This is selected to incoagulate a prepared a plate containing nutrient agar, and it's incoagulated. These cells are transferred to the small flask containing yeast food in solution. This is further transferred into the progressive large solutions kept in a flask with yeast food. Thus, in 3 weeks, one cell can be grown into 100 of tons. So this is what the first stage of making a commercial compress is. What they do, they get the first culture or the first seed, and they keep it for the 3 weeks in different flasks in different temperature, giving the different amount good quality of food to produce the yeast, and they can be multiplied into the ton in if they get proper temperature and food in a week. Preparation of wort, the yeast food is called a wort. The wort is designated to the yeast food. This is a mainly a sugar solution of some form into which some nitrogenous minerals matter such as phosphates are added. Then we have a fermentation tanks where these were kept so that they can multiply and they can see their working. Their multiplication was done in this. Then they are separation, compressing, and packing. Here these perfectly yeast on a suitable temperature. They are in the liquidy form. They are with the help of centrifugal force separators. The hard form or the yeast form, we have taken out into the good temperature of 38 degree Fahrenheit. Then they are compressed, filtered and compressed, and make a bar of that, and that bar was kept and packed and then moved to the commercial outlet for their use. This is a diagram of how they are making the commercial yeast, which like molasses, water, ammonia, phosphate, heat exchanger, pure strainer, then mother yeast, yeast cream, air fermentation vat, dehydration, cooling, water, centrifugal, stage where they separate the yeast cooling, waste water treatment, yeast cream packing, etc. These are the things. Then we have the fourth ingredient, salt. Salt is generally used to give the flavor, stability on gluten, control the rate of fermentation, retentions of moisture. So these are the use of salt: large volume, less crust color, weakened crumbles due to more actions on the gluten. This is the work of the salt which we have. Sugar is the main food for the yeast. They provide the yeast to get converted and to get a start activation, and they convert into the complex form of sugar into the simple form, which due to which they produce the CO2. If sugar is added to such a flour, the sugar content increase, which cause large volume. If we add a put it a good quantity of sugar, then it will lead to the large volume, means double the fermentation growth. High crust color will be very much brown, and very weak structure. The structure is very weak, it can be collapsed before baking. So putting the sugar is also a very much important. Functions of the sugars: primary yeast food, crust color, some are anti-staining agents, some are bread improvers, glaze or buns, moisturizing. These are the some works of the sugar. Now we come with the fats. Fats have a physical effects on bread rather than any chemical reaction. Fat being a shortening agent, it reduces the toughness of the gluten and gives mellowness to the final product. Fat also has a lubricant effect on the fine gluten strands, giving extra volume to the final product. The strand begins to slip over each other and thus affect the final quality. Fat is not having a very much chemical effect on the making of dough. It is having a more of the physical effect. The physical effect is like that they get stuck with these strands of protein, and these protein stand stick with each other, which allow the bread a good physical structure, a good texture, and good moisture content in that. It's allow the work of it help in the work of molecular strands of the protein. What are the effects of fat? Increase the food value, reduce elasticity, soften the crust in the crumbs, moisture retentions, and in a small amount, increase volume used extensively, volume affected. Butter and lard given flour to the products. Butter and lards are used. Butter is from the fat of milks of mammals, and the lard is a fat which we get from the pork, basically pork. Now we have a seventh ingredient, milk. Milk also has a physical effects on bread in the formation of tightening effect of gluten, the action of casein or the milk protein. However, again milk having a physical effects, and the physical effect is that they provide the protein to the protein to the dough of the to the means protein of the milk also help to the protein of the wheat which was present, and it helps in making their strand more firm. And the most important thing that milk is also having a natural sugar which is lactose, and again it's good for the good food for the yeast to work effectively. What are the point to be considered when using a milk? Check is the milk powder is heated treated, increase the water content, more yeast or digestive enzymes use, reduce fermentation time as a low breaking temperature. Malt is a raw material that is of great importance in bread making as it is yeast food, and digestic malt is also a great bread improver. Now the product which we use, which we know as a bread improver, is basically a malt. Generally, to improve the quality of bread, we use the bread improvers. These bread improvers are nothing, it's just a malt, and the malt is content con- malt content of fermentation. It helps in the fermentation process, it helps in the denaturation of the protein which was present in the flour. So it increase the work of yeast. Sometimes somewhere the yeast are very not able to work firmly, so the malt is the thing which can be used. Malt flour, malt extract, dehydrated malt extract powders are used to get this. So this is all the major ingredients which we used in making bread. In the next video, we are going to know the steps involved in making the bread.